And we'll count it down from 3, 2, 1. Welcome everyone once again to the Livestream Show. Today, we are taking a deep dive into the world of live video podcasting. And my guess, and there is more than one, there's two guys. They are from Venezuela and they are brothers. They go by the handle Biz Bros, and they have created this ongoing 3 times a week live video show that they call Content is Profit. And they've been running this now for well over a year. I've been binge listening. I highly recommend it. And what I want to do is explore with them sort of where they have been going with this show, like why did they develop it, and really break down the details of what it takes to put together a show like this. So stay tuned, and we will get on with the show. Yahoo! Recorded live in Boston, Massachusetts, this is the Livestream Show. In a world full of underexposed entrepreneurs, the Livestream Show is your gateway to a global community of live stream pioneers who dare to go live and create something special and unexpected, which could only happen because it was live. I'm your host, Brad Powell. Let's get on with the show. All right, and we're back. And here they are. Yahoo!
What's up, you guys? How you doing, man? Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Loving the intro. I'm like, is this a talk show? Like, this is so cool.
Yeah, my vision for the feel of all of that was like, well, what if I could create some kind of variety show, game show kind of thing?
Yes.
Absolutely. And it has that feel, I'm telling you, I had a huge smile watching that intro. I was like, wow, this is so cool. I don't think we've ever been on somebody else's shows that has an intro like that. So thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to date myself. I don't know if you guys coming from Venezuela, you may never have heard of a show that was really popular way back in the 1960s. It was called the Ed Sullivan Show.
And I've heard of them. So yeah, I've been geeking out on like talk shows because this is a conversation that we should have as well, because we're like, how can we make our show more of a talk show? So recently on Business Wars, I was like, they did like a Business Wars episodes on talk shows. I'm like, we gotta do something like that. Yeah. So
yeah. So this show, first of all, it was at a time when there were only 3 television channels. So you'd like watch one or the other 2. That was all there was. And this show it happened on Sunday nights at 8:00, and it was live television. So whatever happened on the show was like on camera happening. And if you were some big famous person, this was the place to be on. It was like the place to make your name. It was when the Beatles first came to the United States. Their first appearance was on the Ed Sullivan Show, and that's where most people in this country first saw them.
Yeah, well, that's incredible. We're gonna by the way, we're note takers, so we're gonna be taking this notes and stuff because this is all information we love as well.
Yeah, well anyway, so I've been really wanting to model a little bit in terms of like, well, what can we learn? What can we nowadays, many years later, 50, 60 years later, learn from the way these things started? This was all live, and we're now in an infancy of doing live broadcasting, and sort of like, okay, well, it's almost like there was such a gap that people have forgotten like what the skills there were, and we have to relearn it. So this is part of the reason why I'm so interested in talking with you, because you guys have been completely joining, diving in and being the live pioneers and pioneering out there, not only for yourselves, like you're walking your talk, but also so that you can help the clients who you work with. So to start our journey today, I know that the method, the framework that you have come up with is called content momentum. And so let's just start there and tell us what content momentum is. What is that process or that method that you're doing?
Absolutely. So that's the service that we offer to a little bit of our high-end clients, right? Like, so it was born out of a lot of trying a lot of things.
Necessity.
Trying necessity. So, we go a little bit back on when we first started the business about almost 6 years ago now. We actually started doing vinyl stickers, and then we transitioned to T-shirts, ebook, all these crazy like entrepreneurial ventures that we thought it was going to be like the road to cash, right? And we were definitely victims of broad marketers at the time, and it evolved into. We started to advertise those things, and then we moved into a social media marketing agency opportunity. We started serving local businesses. Through those local businesses that we were helping, I was working at a fitness studio at the time, and I did not have enough time to produce content. And corporate was pushing us to do content, and we're like, okay, how can we figure out a way that we can leverage my time at the time to create, for about 4 hours, and then have content for the rest of the month? And that's kind of like the initial question that we had. And then it evolved into what content momentum is. So what the service is essentially is like if we have a long form piece of content, people don't have the team or the resources or the willingness to actually go out and hire their own team. We provide that in-house solution where it's like all included, and we basically multi-purpose that content depending on their marketing objectives. So there's different levels of where people and entrepreneurs can come in, or big companies, right? So that's the premise of it. I don't know, Fonzi, if I hit all the. Checking.
So that is content momentum, right? But for content momentum to work, you need a pillar, right? And the pillar is that long form piece of content. So when it comes to us, right, we weren't actually publishing at first. We were just doing this, what we call the process itself. We actually call it M2M. And the M2M, we were doing it for other people, but not for ourselves. We weren't actually publishing at all. And when the quarantine started here in the US around March, we actually lost about 80% of our business because they were all brick and mortars. And that was a huge blow for us. We're like, okay, what do we do now, right? My brother panicked a little bit more than I did.
I would say like a lot more.
And we're like, okay, let's focus. What can we do, right? And all those voices from all those incredible people that we studied over the years came to our minds, and they were like, publish. And at the moment, one of our clients, he actually had a podcast that he was releasing 3 times a week. It wasn't live, but we're like, you know what? We have the time now. We got the time to do this. So let's do the podcast. Let's launch a podcast 3 times a week. Fun fact, a year before that, we actually attempted to start a podcast. That's when we invested in the equipment, the mics that you're seeing right now, or we're listening to right now. And we thought just by investing, we're gonna, that's gonna be our accountability right there. Since we invested, we're gonna execute. Well, let me tell you, that is not like that. We invested, and then we try to make it so perfect, right? At first, we weren't going live. It was just we wanted to have the perfect looking and sounding podcast. So we had like 3 different cameras, a light, the mics, right? So the DSLRs, for those that are familiar, the video cameras, they have a timer, most of them, a 20-minute timer. So every 20 minutes, we will have to get up and start the recording again, right? So it was so much friction that we never ended up actually editing none of those episodes. We recorded 5 and 0 have been published from that time, right?
They're locked in the vault.
So fast forward 1 year, right, to when the quarantine started, and we're talking about, okay, this time we are actually going to start the podcast, right? That pillar content that we need for our own content momentum and to them. And we look at ourselves like, okay, how are we gonna do it? And we decided, let's do it live. We gotta do it live because first, a few months back, we did a challenge that we call 45 Live, that it kickstarted in a way the business, the service side of content momentum. It helped us a lot, building relationships, finding incredible clients, and getting yourself out of that shell, right? Just going live, it just does something to you, right? Putting your thoughts into words. And at that moment, we were discussing the podcast. We said, you know what? Same principle that we applied to 45 Live, we're gonna apply it to podcasting. We're gonna do it live Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. If we mess up, guess what? We're gonna have to deal with it. It's gonna have to become part of our personalities, right? I mean, at first we were a little bit afraid. Maybe I think me a little bit more than you,
Yeah.
but I was a little bit afraid of. I have an accent. Sometimes I mispronounce words, right? Sometimes I don't use the right words, right? And I was like, what are people gonna say? Guess what? Going live gets rid of all those fears. I still do it very often, and I'm like, you know what? It's okay. It's part of my brand, right? At this point, like, I know I still need to perfect my English, and it's gonna happen over time, but I'm okay with it, right? And that's how the journey started. And we just made a commitment to go live 3 times every single week. And that pillar content that we started creating, right? Content is profit, the podcast. Now that started feeding the content momentum side of things for us, right? And now we started getting and leveraging all this effort that we were putting 3 times a week to create content to now be present in social media every single day of the week, multiple times. So, like my brother said, in a nutshell, that is what content does. Right?
That's a quick story. I mean, you can tell that we like talking.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, a couple of things that you mentioned that I'll just sort of follow through on. One is this idea of reducing friction. You know, one of the things that I love about this medium going live is that it can be the absolutely simplest way. I mean, you know, here with my phone, I can literally, you know, anytime I have any inspiration, I want to say anything to anybody, I can pull out my phone, hit the live button, and start sharing, and immediately be engaging with the people who I want to be talking to. And you know, like, I know that you guys talk about this sort of throughout the work that you do. Is like, well, how can you reduce the friction? And so what other ways are you seeing that pan out through this process?
Yeah, I love that question, because when I was growing up, I first of all, I always say that we love our dad. We have a lot of stories with our dad. And it sounds like we're just like throwing rocks at him, but we absolutely love our dad. Yeah. But, you know, growing up, I was a kid that was a little bit lazy, right? Like, when I had to throw something away, instead of getting up to the trash can and throwing it away, I would always try to throw it. And then if I missed, then I had to get up. And my dad was like, lazy people work double, right? And he kept saying that to me. Playing soccer, I would try to figure out some ways, right? So now, fast forward to this point, and I realized that, hey, you know what? Like, I'm going to use that laziness, and I'm doing air quotes here for those that are just listening, to my advantage, right? All I want is to remove friction from things. So when we encountered a situation, right, where the people that we were talking to, the businesses that we were talking to, they were like, whoa, all you guys do is amazing, but you guys are not doing it yourself. That was a huge gut punch for us. We're like, oh, that hurts. Right? So we need to start publishing. And that's about the time that the 45 Live Challenge came across, right? At the moment, we were taking on a fitness challenge. Some people might know it. It's called the 75 Hard, right? And we were doing 2 workouts a day. We were holding ourselves accountable. And we look at each other. We're like, wow, this is amazing that we're doing it. Why don't we apply the same principles to publishing, right? So it came back to the 45 Live. Can we go live for 45 days in a row? When we talked about that, we discovered that the principle there was removing friction, right? How do we, right? How can we create your minimal viable content? For us, it was just go live, because we don't need to edit, right? We don't need to have multiple cameras, the light, the microphone, right? There's no post-production whatsoever. You literally go on Facebook, put a hook to your video, go live, and start talking. And when you click done, that's it. It's in the world it's in the interwebs for everybody to see. So that's when we developed that concept of the minimal viable content, right? Yeah. And for us, it represents what is the minimum. Again, this is where the lazy. Again, I'm doing air quotes for those that are just listening. The lazy mindset comes in, because we're like, what is the minimum amount of effort that I need to put to get the maximum amounts of results, right? And for us, it was just going live. Yeah. I don't want to say that this like drips into every aspect of your life, but for us, it was more important get it done than get it right or perfect.
Yeah.
We just wanted to get it done.
Keep in mind, right? We were also running our business and starting a business and starting a product. And there's a lot of stuff on the back side of things that was taking a lot of our capacity to produce, right? So when we look at people that might have resources or more resources than we do and can produce something more, right? We sometimes that measuring stick is not the right one, right? So we gotta bring down. So, okay, what are my resources? What's my capacity as in individually or with a team? Like what can we produce? And then go there. So for us was literally like, okay, how can we create this like shock that we can actually execute? Because without consistency, there's nothing to measure, right? Like consistency is the mother of all KPIs, and that was the initial premise. So when we did the show, we're like, okay, how can we do this with the least friction possible to execute 3 times a week, which is a very high volume for a live show. And then there's tools that we plug into to leverage, right, and be able to then post-production or different things and different aspects that come after the show.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, I mean, this whole thing about letting go of perfection, and you're talking about having a strong accent, this medium almost supports these idiosyncrasies.
Yeah.
I mean, the more quirky you are, the more fun stuff that wasn't planned happens because of the fact that it's live. Like you didn't know. Like today I was doing a stream down by a lake that's nearby here. And in the middle of it, this woman with her dog came charging down. She was talking loudly on her phone and throwing the ball for the dog, and the dog was splashing in the water and then coming back up. And I just turned the camera around on them and brought them in on the stream. I said, look, isn't this great? And then we got talking. It was just part of what happened, in that moment. And so
Absolutely.
Why not,
Yeah.
And I made a new, when I was done, I made a new friend.
Absolutely, right? It's more relatable too, because yes, I'm not gonna lie, like there are podcasts out there that I listen that I love the fact that they are extremely well produced, right? But at the same time, I love the ones that feel that I'm right next to the person, and live streaming feels like that. You're making you're laughing, you're not cutting anything out of it, everything is raw and real. And we often talk about the 3 P's of differentiation, and not to get into it, but one of those is personality, right? Like you're gonna attract the people with probably similar personalities, or people that like your personality. So why cut it out and make it all, make it look like something that you are not in post-production, instead of going with your personality, embracing it, loving it, right? And going live with it and get the people around you that are going to support just that as well. So that is probably one of my favorite live stream elements.
It's funny because I think we've been, I guess, spoiled by live now, because we get these ideas from our team now that they're like, hey, you guys should start doing this type of videos, this kind of deal. And we're like, if we cannot produce this live because we want to leverage the most out of the content that we produce, I don't think it's going to get done, because there's a thinking aspect that takes mental capacity to plan and put these things in place. That for some stuff, like in our business, we do that. Like we plan ahead of time, and there's a yearly planning that happens, and a quarterly planning, and so on. But when it comes to publishing, because the capacity is so limited and it's us performing, right? I want to make sure that I want to leverage the most out of it. So if it's the conversation was like, hey, can we potentially produce this live in a format or a framework that then we can leverage with the team? If the answer is yes, we're going to consider it, right? If the answer is no, we're going to pass, because we cannot leverage that. And that's been really funny with Clubhouse, for example. We've been considering, okay, what can we do there? How can we include Clubhouse into the Content is Profit framework? And because there's no leverage after the fact that we record there live, that has been one of the bigger factors of stopping us, because we're getting incredible results and the community is growing with the show the way it is. And we're like, if it adds friction, now that has become an indicator, like, should we do it or not, right? Depending on the capacity, right? If we have somebody specific for Clubhouse at some point, incredible. Let's go there. But at the time, if it's us as an attractive character, the people that run the show and run the content, if it's not live, it's gonna be really challenging. Even keynote presentations, it's funny. Like last year, we were able to speak at Podfest and VidFest, and we had 2 keynotes. And what we did was literally a live episode with explaining the frameworks, right? Because we do these frameworks, that are frameworks, we know back and forth what it is, and we did a live presentation. We had some guidance of some slides that we prepared, but at the end of the day, it was literally a live show, and that was really well taken because the people in the audience resonated so much. Because it was just us. It was not just a powerful presentation. It was literally the show explaining these frameworks and telling stories, and it was very, very organic. So we got really good feedback, and we're like, this is cool. I feel like this is going to be the framework for presentations. And it didn't stop us from executing, which is the most important part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, well, speaking of executing, there's we got a couple of questions here, so I'm going to entertain one of them.
Sweet.
I can't tell who this person is. I'll bring them right on here. He or she is saying, so I'm in real estate. How would that work? I want to start. That sounds awesome. I love the idea of going live. Brad is amazing.
Yes. We love Brad too.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I have a lot of ideas about what a real estate guy could do. What do you guys think?
You know,
so yeah, you want to tell the story of the client?
Absolutely.
Yeah, tell the story.
Why not? So first off is I think we need to understand 4 different things, right? We've got to understand first what are our resources in the business, right? So if you're in real estate, is it just you producing or is a team behind you, right? What are those resources, and kind of list them out. Right under that, we got to see like what is the capacity of those resources, right? Do we have money? Like how much can we afford if the money is not an issue, right? We have a team, how much time they can dedicate, or if it's just you, how much time can you do it, right? Right after that is like, what is the consistency that I'm gonna commit to, right? I gotta commit if we're gonna go live. So we see the comments here, me, myself, and I. Okay, perfect. Okay, good, because this is exactly how we started with the frictionless publishing with the Facebook Live, and it was Facebook because our audience was there, right? So we go back to marketing principles, like where is your people? And then commit to that consistency. For us, in that case, was 45 days straight of Facebook Lives. And funny enough, at day 15, because we're telling relatable stories with our market, with our pains, and touching on those marketing principles, we got a 6-figure client. At day 15, no production whatsoever, because the person was there watching every single day, and they reached out and they're like, hey guys, I really love this. And funny enough, that was a real estate client, right? So our example is the frictionless, right? Committed, what content? Sweet. So if we want to dive into what content, let's say you take on the 45 live challenge, right? What are stories that are relatable with your market? What are the pains that you're solving to your ideal clients? Like, am I taking them towards pleasure, or I'm taking them away from pain, right? And then we tell those stories, and then we put a call to action. Very simple framework to kind of get started is, I'm going to tell a story, and then I'm going to relate that story with what I do, and then I'm going to invite them to join us into a call to action, right? Send me a DM, give me a phone call, and so on. So the client example, for example, in this real estate market, the framework is very similar. It's just they just have resources to invest. So what happened is they created a show where they interview their clients, right? They interview their tenants, and they sell turnkey products, right? So maybe you do a Facebook Live with one of your clients and be like, hey, tell me how was your experience working with me, for example? And it becomes this really organic conversation with the camera, right? Let's say hopefully the client is very comfortable with doing that, right? Yeah. But with these guys were doing that, and what they were doing is they were leveraging that platform that they're actually going live. Then we were taking that content, and obviously this is at the resources stage. Boom. They put it in front of social. They feed people into a community. So like, what is that community piece that you're building? Is it just you? Like, should we put him in a group? Like, what is it? And this is really fun because as you start publishing and experimenting on your own,
things start growing.
Things start growing very organically. You're gonna see like, wow, that resonated so much. But keep in mind, stories are very powerful, right? Make sure you don't forget to put a call to action on how to reach out. Yeah. Tell them what's the next step, right? Hey, if you're interested, if this was awesome, if you love this property, if you love what I'm telling you, reach out to me. Tell them exactly how. Send me a DM, send me a phone number. And I think that would be incredible to grab initial traction.
And the most important part is to stay consistent. Whatever you decide to do, commit to it and stay consistent long enough so you can start measuring, right? Again, I saw the comment there, 45 live, you say you'll do it. So we want to hear about it. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And I would love to honestly follow the progress, day 15, day 30, and day 45, see how it's going.
Yeah, that's great. For a realtor, I have a couple of different examples of what I've seen other people doing. I mean, the obvious thing, of course, is you could, is the live stream. You can live stream every single home tour that you do. You can just walk into any property, walk around, talk about what it's like, what the neighborhood is like, all of that. And that's sort of the basic for your work to become like the familiar face in the realty world. You could be doing that. But I've seen some other much more creative things that other realtors have done. One example was this guy basically was living in a really small town in North Carolina. And it was a place where people go to vacation and to go fishing. And so what he became was the guy who knew that area. And he would do all kinds of simple stuff. Like if gas was on sale for, 50 cents less, he would pull up to the gas station and say, hey, check out the sign here. You can save money if you buy your gas here today. Or he would go into the local bakery and say, hey, these guys make the best cinnamon buns, on this side of the Mississippi, and all this kind of stuff. He just sort of did all kinds of things. And he was really sort of like the whole local cheerleader for every local business and every local business person in that little community. And
that's so cool.
Had, as a result, got this huge, big following on Facebook, and anyone who was coming to and from the area knew about this guy. And the fact that he also happened to be a realtor, great. Who are you going to call? Well, you're going to call the guy that you know. And I know of another example of somebody out west who, what he did was he actually created a show, and he called it East Side Eats. And this was, I think, in San Diego. And basically, so the east side of San Diego has a lot of really nice restaurants, and he would just go to one. And he would walk in, with his phone and live streaming and, meet the chef and meet the owner and talk to this wait staff. And then with his friends, they'd sit down and they'd eat a meal, and they would live stream the whole thing. And he would just do this week after week. And that was his show. It's like, where is a good place to eat in this neighborhood? And again, like that became really popular. People want, home buyers and home sellers and homeowners want to know where's the best place to eat. And so he became known for that, as well as being known for, I do real estate.
That's so good.
I love that. Be a resource to the community. I love that. I think that is an incredible idea. And then all these people, the relationships that you're building while doing that, you're going to know you do real estate. So when the time comes for either them or somebody that they know, they're talking about, going and buy a house, guess what? You might be the first person that they redirect them to. So I think the power of building these relationships is incredible. Through the experience that we've had on our own and obviously with the clients that we serve, we have from different backgrounds. And honestly, there's no wrong way to do content. The only wrong way is if you don't do it, right? Because at the end of the day, like, we got to produce something, and that something is going to be a stepping stone to the next thing, right? So it's so incredible because it's going to evolve. We call it content evolution. But at the same time, it's like, how can we consistently execute? We got to produce something that we feel good about it, right? We talk about content money, right? That term that Fonzi, brought into the table in one of our masterminds. Is that feel good content? Like, what am I actually gonna do that feels good to share with the world, right? We gotta be proud of what we do. We're extremely, like, content profit is a must. But it's not just a must because it's a business driver. It's also a must because it helps us build relationships, and that makes us feel amazing. Because through the conversations we're having these incredible epiphanies, and we're sharing with like-minded people, and that feeds our soul, right? And then the benefits and the marketing side of things, yes, it does help at the end of the day, but without the relationship, without the things that make it really awesome and enjoyable, we would not be able to execute consistently. So start experimenting and see, how can you execute, right? Become your own framework. I'm trying. Yes, let's go. I'm excited. We're seeing the content. I'm starting mine today, calling it. I love it. Ain't nothing to it, but
this is great. I'll bring this on screen. Here we go. I'm starting mine today. I'm calling it "Ain't Nothing but to Do It." There you go. Great name for a show. Brilliant.
Congrats.
That's so cool.
So exciting.
Okay, well let's talk about. I want to dive a little bit deeper into your guys' show, and one of the things that I love about it, I mean, you're doing such a great job, and that is the experience that you're creating for the people who join you. Like, for instance, the beginning, the opening of your show is high energy. And every time you bring on a guest, you're treating them in this way that, like, different than probably every other guesting thing that they've done, is really highly elevated. Like, by the time they actually are on screen, they're like, wow, this is amazing. Where am I? Who are these guys? They're feeling really good about whatever is going on there. It's like, okay, look, I'm ready to go now. And so talk a little bit about that. I mean, I know that first of all, it's scripted and you do a lot in your intro. Like, there's a lot of information that you're sharing every single time, and it's really intentional. So can you talk a little bit about that and how it came to pass? Like, how you decided to do those things?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this story. Yeah, I love this story.
You tell, because you're very passionate about this.
First of all, the framework that we have right now, we haven't always had it, right? Like, we've built up until this point, so it looks that way, right? Mm-hmm. Not all of it is actually scripted. We do bullet points, so we know what we say, but we like to let the creativity run in certain parts, and then certain parts are scripted from, like, for example, when we're bringing on the guests, right? But how it started was that when we decided to, have the show, Content is Profit started it was just my brother and I for the first 20 episodes. And then around episode 21, we decided to bring our first guest. And our first guest was somebody that we connected with through the 45 Live, a really good friend. He was in town, so we invited him, hey, come to the podcast. And when he came, we actually gave him I'm just going to call it like a regular intro, where we're like, oh, today we have, our good friend, Pablo, and he does X, Y, and Z. He has accomplished X, Y, and Z. Thank you for coming, Pablo, right? And I mean, it was fine at the moment. We didn't think anything about it. Yeah. But the next guest that we brought, he was our mentor at the moment, right? We were in one of his coaching groups. We were like really involved in his community. And honestly, we just wanted to surprise him. We were like, how can we bring him to the show and create an experience that he's like, that is amazing, right? Because again, we were a podcast with only 21 episodes at the moment. We didn't have a huge audience at the moment. And we're like, we want him to remember this moment. We don't just want to be another podcast for him, right? So as we were brainstorming, we're like, what if, we do it funny? What if we do a funny intro? And, a lot of these people that we bring, they have a lot of accolades, if you want to put it that way, right? A lot of things that you could put in the intro. What we discovered is that it's not just about you mentioning everything that they've done, right? Like, you can say one or two things that they have accomplished, but at the end of the day, is that, like, am I giving them an experience and elevating them and making them feel good and excited to be here? So we started having that thought with our guest. His name is Steven, and we're like, okay, what can we do? And we started writing funny things that he even himself says in his own content. So we started writing down, and then like, okay, what are we gonna do for the music? It's like, are we gonna put music in it? Are we gonna bring in with music? And we remember that a few months back, we were actually at his live event, and he had a very specific song that he uses when he comes up on stage. And funny enough, or luckily enough, we must say, we actually Shazammed the song. And I did and I had a screenshot on my phone, and I remember the exact song that he uses to come out on stage. Yeah. So we're like, oh, what if we actually use that song when we say, welcome, Steve, right? Like, can we use it? So we downloaded the song, we have a roadcaster, we put it into the roadcaster, and then we read the intro, and we said, wow, that seems a little bit out there. And we asked ourselves, what are we gonna do if he doesn't like it? And
what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, right? What's the worst that can happen? And the conclusion that we got was like, well, the worst that can happen is that he just quits Zoom and leaves, and we are with no guest, right?
And then we do a solo episode.
Yeah, exactly. If that happens, we'll do a solo episode. So it's let's take the risk. So we go ahead, we did the intro, and all the time as we're doing the intro, we can actually see him on the back, right? You could see the screen, the full screen, what the audience was watching, it was just us, but we could see him on the background, and he was cracking up as we would go. And I remember with every single word, it was like reassurance, right? It's like, oh, this is working. And then when we said, please welcome Steve, and we played the music from his stage, he lost it. Like we brought him on the stream, and his face was like, I can't believe this. And his first words were, this is the best intro I've ever had, right? Somebody that has been in hundreds of podcasts. He's like, this is the best intro ever. And after the show, my friend and I look at each other and we're like, well, that set the bar pretty high, because
I guess we can have a new bar for intros.
Yeah, because we cannot bring guests now and not give them the same treatment that we're giving to all the other guests, right? So that's why we put so much care in the intro.
So operationally, right? Like, how does that look like? So we identified with Steve. I don't think we had the form that we sent out now to our guests. It's something super simple. Where, like, it takes about 5 minutes. But we ask very simple things, like, what is your superpower, right? What is the top 5 things that you're very proud of? Like, and most people is super incredible. It's like family and different fun facts and awesome things that normally, you know, in a business podcast, not necessarily is shared, because normally people do the research on their own, right? So by asking that, the people give us that information. That's the sauce, right? That we use to create it. And so we put that in place so we can receive that information ahead of time, so we can plan it. So, you know, in about 30 minutes, the whole intro, the whole process for the show is done. And then we chose a song after Steve, that we chose a song that we could use potentially for other guests.
Yeah, if we have somebody that we know that the song that they used to go on stage, we might use that one for them. But mostly now we have a specific song.
Content specific. It contains probably a specific song. But that was fun. And you know, this is part of the process. When you start publishing, you're gonna start discovering those things of like, what if I do this, right? There's some ideas also coming to the show, like a little beat intro and stuff. But
and we have as much creativity as we can in this. For example, we had this one guy. He's awesome. His name is Donnie. And he looks like the guy from Dos X commercial, the most interesting man in the world. He looks just like him. So I was like, I haven't seen an ad of those in a while. And I discovered that they actually stopped running those ads in like 2017. So the intro literally said, you guys know why the Dos X most interesting man in the world is no longer? Well, because we have the new one, the most interesting guy in the internet. Like super funny things, and you see them laughing. Yeah. And the cool thing is, like, the idea is you want to make them laugh because that makes them connect deeper with you. If they come up on the screen and they're laughing, right? Guess what that does to the audience? It helps them connect with them as well. Yeah. So honestly, for us, it was like, how can we make it fun? Like, we like fun things. Why don't we have a show that is fun in the process as well? Yeah,
and when we talk about these things with our community and the people that are in our programs, you know, fear is one of the questions that comes. Like, oh man, how do we deal with that, right? And sometimes when we bring people that in our mind, they might stay, you know, they're way ahead of us. Like, let's say business-wise, right? At the very beginning, that was really intimidating. What we did to fight that was, obviously, we brought Steve that he's light years ahead of in our business, right? Like, he was a mentor, he was a friend, so somebody that we knew, so we felt comfortable. But another lesson is, with the show, you know, in our heads, we're at the same level, right? Like, we're having a conversation, and I think that mentally helps a ton to establish that conversation, right? We're not putting them below us, we're not putting them above them. We're at the same level, and we're having these very interesting conversations, right? And there's some interviews that is fun because they're like, hey guys, I respect you, but I don't think that way. I think the opposite. I'm gonna challenge that idea, and we're like, yes, challenge it. We love this, right? Because that's when everything happens. That's when like progress happens, and then that's when real good discussion happens. So by putting us at the same level, right? We're like, okay. You know, and we've brought people, let's say, Steve Sims was one of them. Todd Brown, wow. Todd Brown was episode 40, I believe. And he is like, in our eyes as marketers, he's like one of the top, right?
Yeah, and he actually gave us, at the end of the show, in the show, live, he was like, guys, for everybody that knows me, they know I don't cater to anybody or I don't pamper anybody, but I gotta say this. And he complimented us on how we ran the podcast, on the intro, right? It's like the way you guys just handled this interview, it was absolutely amazing. I think you guys are gonna make it far, right? And for somebody like Todd Brown that we really look up to, say something like that to us live, that meant the world. We're like, okay, that is reassuring that the process that we're doing is the correct one. So let's double down on what we're doing.
Grab those comments, right, and take it and run with them, because that's gonna be the gas that's gonna fuel the whole process. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so much to follow up with here. What I like about what you guys are talking about right now is, you creating this whole experience, and when you get together with your guests, there's this, super great. I mean, one of the reasons that this medium works so well as a video podcast, and sort of all the lessons that you can take from the world of podcasting is just that. Like, not only are you able, because it's live, to build a relationship with the audience, and so we're getting all these great comments here that, come on the screen, and because we're multicasting, we're hosting a live party for people who, some of them are on LinkedIn, some of them are on YouTube, some of them are on Facebook, and some of them are watching this on Twitter, and so on the one hand, like, by producing this, I can actually go to all the people who I'm connected with on LinkedIn and say, hey, I'm hosting a party. Let's get together over here on LinkedIn. And that's where they like to hang out. At the same time, I can be going over to my followers and subscribers on YouTube and say, hey, you guys, I'm hosting a party. Come on in. Yeah, and then we can, like, all of us can get together and have this conversation. And in this context, and learn about how to do this better, how to do this even, and you guys, like, it seems like every time you go live, you're doing something a little bit more. But I mean, raising the bar really high on that intro. Like, I need to work on my intro.
No, we actually love it. Like
that level.
We love the intro. Yeah.
Again, I think that's the essence of each of the shows, right? Like, each one comes alive, and each host has their own framework and their own way they do it. I mean, I just had this incredible interview today, and this guy was sitting. Huge props to this guy, because he was sitting in a car, right? And when I finished the show, I turned around to my brother, and like, this is probably one of the best interviews, not on content side of things, but like on the execution. And I'll give you a little bit of background. This guy was, it was not live, it was recorded, but he was sitting in his car with his laptop and just his earbuds in, right? And we started chatting, and he was like, I'm going to start the interview now, and so on. And we had a really cool conversation. And at the end of the show, I asked him, I'm like, hey, are you at work? Is this your side gig? Like, is this your passion project? What is this, man? And he's like, no, man, like, I'm really passionate about this message that I'm sharing. And, this is his words. I'm like, I'm just poor, right? I have a studio apartment, and my girlfriend is in class, and I cannot interrupt that. So I just come to the car and I record the interviews here in my car. And I'm like, oh, dude, first of all, one of the best experiences I've ever had in an interview, the fact that you're sitting in here, like, it doesn't matter where you are, right? And yeah, live streaming for us is a big part of the process. But for this guy, that didn't stop him from executing. And it was literally his laptop and his earbuds and a cool conversation, right? And then the produced episode came out the other day, and it sounds really like, if we're worried about the production, don't be, right? Like, it was great enough, right? It was like, it was out there, and that was so awesome. As we evolve, right? As we build the base process, like that minimum viable process, right? It's like, okay, how can we elevate it a little bit more, and then take it one step at a time? Maybe we add the mic, maybe we add the intro, maybe we do this, right? And maybe starting with the fully produced stuff might add some friction if we haven't done it before.
Yeah, so actually something that we kind of like took as our mantra when we were starting the 45 Live for the first time, since especially me, I was very perfectionist and I just wanted to have that quality of production, right? I did some videography pre-45 Live, so that's why I wanted it to look super nice. Yeah. And we started saying to ourselves, quality of the message over quality of the production. And that became our mantra. Now we tell that to everybody, quality of the message over quality of the production. If we would have, cared so much about the quality of production of content is profit, we probably wouldn't be here in this conversation today, because what we did is let's focus on the quality of the message. And then what we do is we reflect on it, right? We create, we promote, and then we reflect. What did we do good? What did we do wrong? What do we need to take away from the process? What can we include in the process and make it better one step at a time without hindering the message, right? That is the most important part. And I think going live is key to actually build that quality of the message first over quality of the production. I mean, you can have incredibly produced, live streaming. I mean, we were talking about that before starting, Brad, right? With the multicam and all that stuff, which looks amazing. But guess what? What if you jump with all that production value and all of a sudden you start talking and you don't know what to say? You don't know your message, right? Like, all the production value in the world is not gonna save you. And I want people to think about it. Have you ever seen a video that is so well produced, it's incredible, but it's not engaging? The messaging is not there. You don't feel connected to the other person. And guess what? 1 minute later, you're out of it, onto the next video. And now think about it. Have you ever seen a video of just a talking head, right? Have you seen a video of just one person talking for an hour, sharing stories, right? Opening themselves up, being transparent and vulnerable. And all of a sudden you're like, it's been an hour that I've been listening to this person. There's no production whatsoever, but the message is so good that you're there hooked. And that is the goal at first, right? It's like, okay, quality of the message over quality of the production. And guess what? If you get that, eventually you start getting more resources that you're gonna be able to invest in, higher quality of the production, if you want to, of course. And then you can build up from there. But again, that focus is just key.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's the balance. Production, it really doesn't matter. Like, as long as you sound okay, and that could be just done with a pair of earbuds, and you're somewhere where people can see you, like you have enough light where people can actually see you or see what's going on. That's it. Yeah. Beyond that, the production doesn't really matter. And because it's live, people are super, super forgiving around all of that. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention some of the other things that you're doing. And I want to explore that just a little bit before we go. You guys have brought things into your production which are like your thing. You've brought a language, like it's juicy, and other elements like that, which are just a handle, like part of the identity of your thing. And you're creating this experience that is richer as a result, like, and making the whole thing that you're doing completely unique and different and elevated, like the whole golden boulders, thing, like, oh my God, golden boulders. It's like, that was a golden boulder. The, message is more important than the production value. I mean, that's great. Awesome. So just talk about that a little bit. I mean, I know it's intentional. This is part of your process of developing what is actually a show.
Yeah, it's becoming part of it, right? Like, it's part of the brand. And yesterday, I think we got sent this video. And I'm gonna start with that, and then on how this hashtag juicy golden boulders and table face were born, right? But Chris Doe, we were so fortunate to interview him, and he runs a company called The Future. He reached about 1 million followers on YouTube. He talks to designers, and we got sent out this video with one of our partners in different projects. He's like, guys, watch till video number like 2:02, right? And then he's talking about the subconscious and different things, and then he mentions the Luis's brothers with the same shirt and the hat backwards, right? And the day we had that interview, we were pretty much wearing the same T-shirt by chance, by like a purple shirt that we both have. By complete chance, obviously, when we don't get haircuts, that's why we use the hat. That's the secret. So, but it's become part of the identity, part of the brand, right? Because we show up every single day like that, right? And it was so awesome to reflect on that, because we're like, how do people perceive the show, right? And obviously, at a visual level, people see the name in the back with the graffiti that one of our clients kindly sent us, and then the hat, and then the way that we dress with the soccer jerseys, and the way that we are. But at the same time, when they perceive the audio, right, what are those things that are going to differentiate ourselves? And we go back to the 3 P's of differentiation, right? Like the personality. So that becomes the personality of the show. Now, was that by design? No, it was completely one of those content evolution aspects, right? That as soon as we start executing, and I think the very first one was probably the golden boulders. So
I'm going to add something to that. The hashtags were not intentional. The principle behind naming them, right, and having named elements that pertain to us that is intentional in a sense, because right, when we were studying, I mean, we're still studying a lot of marketing, right, and trying to learn every single day. But one of the things that how you can differentiate, right, is by naming your process. There, you know, let's be honest, there's other companies out there that does that they do content multi-purposing, right? But we have our own very specific process, and we name it. Right now, we own that process, and it differentiates us from the rest of the market. So when we're talking to people, we don't tell them, hey, yeah, we just do content multi-purposing. No, we do content multi-purposing through the process M2M. And they're like, wow, what is the M2M, right? It creates curiosity. Now, one of the first frameworks that we named was the minimal viable content, right? And we just started talking about it every single time. And we started noticing that it caught up around the people that you know, that were around us, and they started using it a lot, right? The first guest that we brought, he uses it all the time. And the cool thing, right, is that he attributes that to us. So when he's talking to people and he mentioned like the minimal viable content, he's like, oh yeah, these two brothers had this concept, right? The minimal viable content. Then we were in an interview with, her name is Catherine Jones. She's amazing too. And that day is when the publishing pyramid came alive. Yeah. We started discovering, and at the end we're like, huh, yeah, we're gonna call it the publishing pyramid. So now that is one of our key frameworks in our business, and we named it. So again, it differentiates yourself from the marketplace. It creates curiosity, and then people can attribute it to you as well, if they want to, of course. So it happened the same with the show. As we were doing it, I think our personality led to hashtag Juicy Juicy, and that was actually a competition that we had.
That was a commitment. Hashtag.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact competition, but then at the end,
so juicy, so good, or so juicy, so good.
Yeah, and then somebody said like hashtag Juicy Juicy, and we're like, huh, that is good. Let's settle on that one, and we started using the same one every single time. And then one day we were talking to somebody that was in Utah, and his background was the mountains. And my brother, all of a sudden, he's like, that's a golden boulder. And I turned it, I looked at it, and I was like, what is a golden boulder? He's like, just like a golden nugget, just way bigger. And the guests started cracking up. We all started cracking up. And that day we decided golden boulder is a thing, right? And again, the prince is not intentional, the creation, but then we applied the principle. We knew that principle and we applied it to it. Let's make it ours, right? Yeah. So now when people talk about golden boulders, guess what? They think about Biz Bros. When they talk about hashtag Juicy Juicy, they think about Biz Bros. And when they talk about hashtag Table Face, they're going to think about Biz Bros. So it's an important part of differentiating yourself from the marketplace.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Especially the creating your own process and giving it a unique name, that, you know, M to M, that kind of stuff. That's terrific, especially when people are now, you know, taking it, borrowing it, and sharing it, and then giving you attribution. That's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you're not like chasing people like, yeah, attribute that to me. Like, if they use it, amazing. Like, we're happy if it works for them, if it serves them, right? Yeah. Me personally, I cannot control whether they attribute it or not. On my side, I do try to attribute anything that we say that came from somebody else. Yeah. I try to do my best to remember who do we learn it from and who we can attribute, just because we would like people to do the same when they share stuff that they've learned from us, right? But at the end of the day, we cannot control those actions. So.
Right. Okay, so my last question is the same as this. As we wrap up here, when people want to follow up with you and get, you know, where are the different places where is the best place to sort of check you out and join in and follow your show and all that kind of thing?
Absolutely. There's a few places. So if you love the podcast version, you can find us in every podcasting platform. Just search for Content is Profit. You're gonna find us. The cover is us upside down. So you can listen to the show there. If you want to see the live behind the scenes every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you can find us at Facebook at Biz Bros Co, and then social media, same thing, at Biz Bros Co. Feel free to send us a DM. There's an official Content is Profit Facebook group as well, where we go in and we do different live trainings. That's where we hosted the 45 Live. Yeah. The group is named the same, Content is Profit.
Yeah. Just so you know, right now we're in the middle of relaunching the group. So we're not accepting the people just yet. But in the next week, I would say we're probably going to start letting the people that is there on the wait list go in. Yes. But we would definitely love to have you in the group. Content is profit. There's other people that publish. It's a good place to network. And again, we're going to be doing weekly trainings to help you guys with, your publishing pyramid and your publishing strategies.
Absolutely. So ton of places.
Awesome.
Choose your more comfortable one.
Right. All right. So one last question. This has been really fantastic conversation. I really appreciate your guys' time. So what does the future look like? I mean, you're getting into a groove here, and it's always, critical to be thinking about, okay, so what's next? Like, how do we keep going forward? How do we keep evolving? What are the things that are striking you guys right now?
Is your question related to the show or for the business as a whole?
I would say let's focus on the show. Like, where do you think the show is going? Like, how is it growing?
Absolutely. I mean, the show grows every single day. We're putting a very big focus on promotion of the show itself, right? So we're looking at what are the assets that are being produced right after. For each episode, there's between 15 and 20 different assets that go out for our own social media, for the guest, on the promo aspect of it, the day off. So we're working very hard on the frameworks with our team to make sure that we can keep consistency at the volume. So the show produces more than 400 pieces of content every single month. It's a very high volume content. The live show is the start of it, which obviously we've been able to build upon that. We've heard the audience that the feedback has been, we want more of you guys. We want more of you and Fonzi on your own. So that might be something that we might be like trickling in a few more solo episodes. But as far as the execution, we're gonna keep being consistent. That's what it is. We're about to hit episode 200. Who would have known a year ago that we would have been there? And we're super excited. I mean, we're excited about building relationships. That's why we bring incredible entrepreneurs and content creators into the show, is to share with them. They share with the audience and they provide action points, and everybody learns. And when we elevate those relationships, the people that are tuning in, that are listening, are grabbing those golden boulders and taking action on those golden boulders. They're gonna get momentum, and that's what it's all about. So I'm very passionate about it. There's talks about starting a network as well. So a few local shows from Biz Bros, different concepts, more on that coming soon. With the people that come into a group, there's going to be probably like a network aspect with people that want to put their productions out and leverage basically the relationships that we're building for everybody. The people that come into a community are very passionate about their messages and about the things that they're doing and providing so much value that it's a waste if we don't do any more with that. We need to, help them be louder and be heard.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. That's amazing. I mean, you guys are really, really, really doing a great job. This has been fabulous. Thank you both so much for joining.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you for the invitation. This was such a fun conversation.
It was.
Likewise. All right. So for anyone who's still here, I just want you to just take note that this show goes live every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So stay tuned next week. Join live. And if there's one thing that you got from today, that somebody who might benefit, someone else who's been like thinking about going live, or maybe they're going live and they're not getting a lot of traction out of it, this episode is for them. So share it. Tell someone, like just one person, tell one person about what we're doing here. And if you want to listen to the podcast version, the audio version drops every single Tuesday on your favorite podcast app. And until next week, I will see you in the future. Yo. Let's see, where's the end button? I got to get my glasses so I can see the end button. Oh no. Oh, here we go.